All right, listener question today. The question is, I'd like a bit more in-depth talk about vision, especially picking small spots on clean targets and picking spots at distance where there's no noticeably visible part of the target to catch your attention. Thanks for all you do. So, talked about, I talk about many times the importance of vision and how important it is to direct your attention to a small spot on the target where you want to drive bullets to. The idea being, if I just keep looking here, as small, as specific as I can be, wait for the sight to get there, then I start shooting. Hopefully bullets are just going to show up where I'm looking. If I look at the shape and color of the targets and just center over the gun somewhere within the outline, then fire, bullets will likely go somewhere on the target, but just not necessarily in the middle or any specific part of the target. Especially if you're shooting for score or something that matters, it's important to direct your bullets to the very middle or exactly where you want the bullets to go. The question is, if there's not an identifying mark on the target, so maybe you can't see the perforated letter A, there's no pasters there, there's no little like marks or bolts on the steel to direct your attention, how do you find that? Or at distance where, I mean, yeah, it's a brown cardboard target, but at distance it's tough. You can't really pick out pasters or really small details. The short answer, without trying to be snarky, is you just have to create that. You have to find that anyway, even though it's not there. So what do I mean by that? By training yourself with, I mean, I've got just a dry fire target here, but whether you use dry fire targets, live targets, whatever, you get to the point where you could just point, it's like, yep, there's no letter A on the target, but it would be right there. If it was perforated, that's exactly where it would be. And you just create the ability to look and to train yourself where that would be. Commonly, using these targets as an example, a lot of people separate, like do the math for the top of the head to the bottom, put a line somewhere in the middle, and that's where they aim. So they aim just from top to bottom, pick the center of the spot, or center of the target, and try to put the bullets there. The issue with that is the bullets are low. For like a military law enforcement point or purpose, there's not as much stuff you probably want to shoot there. So for most clients, they want to shoot higher up in the target. So top of the A zone or where the letter A would be. Which for we'll talk about a USPSA aspect, the letter A, if you find that, it's going to be over center of the targets. If you use the classic style targets, same thing. Just looking at it from top to bottom and putting a line somewhere in the middle. It's like, yeah, that is A, but that's probably not the point you want to look at. So you want to look at, the biggest part of the A zone. So how do you find that part if they're not there? Or if you're using dry fire targets that don't have a middle or a mark or anything like that. And like I said, through training, you can put training wheels on targets like this with like a letter A that you put on with a Sharpie, or some people like tracing the outer edge of the A zone with a Sharpie, or even full-size targets. But it's really a crutch. That's a short-term thing or just a training concept you could use to help you remember, like, nope, don't look at center from top to bottom. Look for where the letter A would be on the target. Or this is the part that your department or coworkers and your group want to shoot or want to put bullets at. So once you decide, like, this is where I want to look, this is where I want to send bullets, then you just train yourself. And even if the target doesn't have, so like using this dry fire target, even though there's no identifying mark, I could still at distance draw my eyes to where the letter A would be, even though it's not a perforated letter A, or if it's at a farther distance where I can't even see the outlines of the scoring areas. But it's just something that comes over time with experience. Again, at distance, the target's blurry, but you could still direct your attention to the smallest area you can. At 50 yards on a full-size target, that small little area might be fist size on the target. Realistically, like, yeah, of course you want to zoom in as much as you can and find the smallest spot, but for how far away the target is, the size of it, all that stuff, you're just trying to direct your attention to the very middle of it as best you can, then waiting for your sight to get there. So anyway, hopefully that answers the question. Yeah, picking small spots and clean targets, picking small spots at distance was nothing noticeably. So the short version is you could use some of those aiming references or just black pasters as a training tool, kind of a crutch. At distance, you'd use black pasters, put like 4 of them side by side. So creating a square, 4 with, with 1-inch pasters, 4 of them kind of in a little square. So you end up with like a 2x2 where you could build it out bigger than that if you needed to see it at extended distances. But again, it's a short-term thing. It's just kind of to get your brain to where you want to look at the middle of the targets, or where you want to like previously look at the middle of the targets or a wrong spot, to retrain your brain to where you want to be looking on the targets. And then you kind of do that so it becomes a habit. Then you take away those training references or the outlines or the perforations you've traced with the Sharpie, and then work on just looking to that area of the target, that spot on the target, regardless of there being anything on it. It's clean targets that have never been shot, or a target with no identifying marks, or it's so far away where you couldn't see those marks or imperfections in the target. So hopefully that gives you something to think about, at least in your dry fire training. Hopefully I answered the question well enough, but if you have any follow-up questions or any other topics you'd like me to talk about, just drop it below. And if I can't answer it in the comments, I'll just make a video. Thanks for watching.